There we go. So again, what is the event damage and unrealistic damage takes damage? Basically, it describes the damage you're providing, and goes back to its Unreal Tournament roots, where different weapons can do different type of damage. This goes to where, like Borderlands takes advantage of this and basically says, this ammo can do all this type of damage, and this ammo can do this. So basically, it's describing the properties of the damage that you're doing. We can reduce this down to not using this because you've got access to code. If you don't want to go that detail with damage, then don't bother. Again, what are the three types of damage? What are the events that how do you assign damage to another actor? How is damage type defined? Again, it's just another class type, and that's how we would handle it here in C#. Is that you would write another class that has the properties that assigns the properties you want for the damage. We talked about default property. Let me just jump in, and I'm gonna go to my PW pawn. Do I want to do... Yeah, I'll do this in the BW pawn. What I'll say is that there is here a public... and I could make it virtual, but I don't want to. In this case, I don't want this to change. We'll talk about that, but it'll be a void function, take damage. And we'll do a float damage value. And the reason for that is that we could do one of the ways you would go about it would be a void process damage. And this would be virtual. So here, this is the case where take damage, again, process damage, again, for our purposes, we would pass it to process damage. And with this whole slew of things we can do here, I want to just maybe check the classes. Let's just check. Yeah, so I did write a take damage function here, and there's a process damage function here. And again, process damage right here is doing just logging the damage. So actually, I want to go back to and take out this function and just override what process damage is doing. In this case, let me go back. We'll do override process damage. I'll take these out. Yeah, I can send this back and be like, hey, but our big thing here is that our health function will be minus equal to our value. Oh, and I'm returning that. Wait, why is it returning? There we go. We'll just return true for right now. I'm not sure. It's been a while since. Again, if you don't want, we can go back and we could change this to a void function. But here we go. If health less than or equal to 0, we probably should have a public. Well, do protected again. Protected virtual void on death. And here's one way we could do this. We could have an on death function. I'm actually going to go and make this more meaningful. I'm going to using Unity engine dot events. And so instead we can make a public event, should be a Unity event. There we go, Unity event on death. And instead of having the function here, we can then drop in on death, invoke, and we'll use the there we go. Again, question mark, making sure that something has been assigned to on death. So if it's empty, it's not going to do anything and it won't cause an error. And so basically, if we're below help, we'll invoke this, and then we can then assign that to wherever we want in what function, wherever, we can make our own function, call it whatever we want, and have it invoke it. So again, this is giving us options of how to do things. I'm just gonna here. And there's other things we could be doing here is that, and this will be important later on. This week, so let's just go back over the assignment one more time. Let's go back to the actor. So if you look here, let's process damage. Here we go. Here we go. So in this case of the take damage controller instigator, so who is causing the damage, I assign that to null. So if I don't have an event info and I don't have an instigator, I can leave those off. And I say here basically who created damage, null, world damage is assumed. So the world is doing damage, not any particular player. So if I don't assign a instigator, then the world's doing damage. Like you run over spikes, you fall into a pool of lava. The world's doing damage to you, not any particular player is doing damage. And then event damage, the default event damage type is used. So if you look through here, if event info is null, I create that and I pass that on through here. Again, through here, if instigator is null, if it's null, I say the world is doing damage. Otherwise, I say that instigator via whatever your damage event string is is doing damage, and I log that out. Again, if we go back to our, let me see, PW pawn where I set this up, I can actually just ignore that by just, if I comment out this line, I'm not going to call out the parents version of the function. So I'm not going to do any of that damage logging. But I'm going to actually leave this back in. And I'll just leave the comment. Parent version of function, method is doing damage logging. I've gone particularly fast. Do I need to go over anything? Does people have any questions?
Yep. So I'm clear. The questions it was referring to in like the pre-lab thing.
Yep.
Damage is more so a function we create ourselves, not a pre-existing thing within Unreal. Yes.
No, in Unity. In Unity. So like there's framework, there's gameplay framework pieces that Unity expects you to build and to define on yourself. And whereas with Unreal, they have been defined for you already. And so we're looking at the best of Unreal and bring it over to Unity for structure, because we're gonna need that, because you're gonna have to jump between engines.
Right. Sorry. It's just sometimes because like the mobile application development is in Unreal, right?
No, mobile is in Unity.
It's in Unity. Okay. Sorry. I just get the two systems crossed in my brain sometimes.
Okay.
Just wanted to double check.
Okay.
So for this class, we're doing Unity.
Yeah, you're working in Unity, but the structure right now, where I'm teaching you Unreal structure in a C# way.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So take what you've learned from Unreal and apply it to this structure here in Unity.
All right, I'll do my best. Just wanted to make sure I understood what was going on. Okay.
Again, you've got full access to the code, so you can look and read it, and that's one of the things you should go through all the classes and look at what they're doing and understand what they're doing.
Right.
Now I'm this version of the code is more in line with like Unreal Engine 3 and early Unreal Engine 4. So there's a lot of passing from the player controller to the pawn in terms of control. One of the things that I'm going to look at. What we can do is actually we can go. Let's go back and to make sure. I'm asking you what again. Finally, I talked about the default property. Then explain this line of code. Ideally, that we have a variable in a parent class that we're casting down to one of its children, so we can do something with the child class. So possess pawn right now is a type of pawn class, and we're casting it down to the PW pawn class so we can use the vertical function. Again, vertical is a member of PW pawn class, but not pawn. And you did some of this casting already in the Unreal Engine already. We built your game mode, or your HUD class. We casted it down from HUD or game mode to our class, so we could get access to a variable or get access to a function or a method. And you're going to do that same here, except instead of doing nodes, you're actually writing code. And again, this is how you would do that functionality. You would in parentheses the name of the class in front of the variable name. All right, let's go over Lab 3. Lab 3 is pretty simple. Enjoy the videos. The last one is my favorite out of these. Actually, renamed the last video is actually the song "Send Lawyers, Guns, and Money," which is you may know the. I'll let you listen to the song. But the idea here is that I'm looking for you to have you should have 3 or 4 projectiles. So I'm asking you to create another projectile class and do something with it, just so that you have variety of projectiles. So you have 2 generic projectiles, the spin one from the second lab that I've showed you, and then something that does something else, that has a little more code that does more. The goal is that, again, you got health will be tracked at PW pawn level, not a public int, but a float. I think we've already done. Yeah. So make it a float, not an int. I will update the document. Here's your starting health. Here's your health. Update process damage. So basically, know when health goes to 0. This will be a trigger for death or dying. Log when this happens. And again, for our purposes right now, I'm doing this with an event, which is perfectly fine. Update to the PW car pawn. Again, we're gonna have a list of projectiles. Have an index so you know, which is private, just so you control which one you're on. And then fire to play this. So we've already got. Let me see. So fire 1 should be fire projectile. 2 is play a horn effect. So go get a sound effect and troll me, please. Here's literally when I tell you do this. This is literally me saying, come at me and troll me. Have fun with this one. All right, and then fire 3, fire 4 is next projectile, previous projectile. So switch between, and literally have I'll go over that in just one moment. Don't worry about doing things when your pawn dies. That is literally the next lab. Know that you've gone below 0. That's the most important thing, that you've gone below 0. But the next lab we're gonna go through. Don't worry about health showing HUD, shields, energy, what projectile you're on. Don't worry about that piece. That's another lab as well. So we're looking at our next labs down the line. So this week it's about Can you switch between, because we haven't used fire 3, fire 4, switch those between your projectiles, and then know when when your car goes to 0. Extra credit, implement a weapon class. So encapsulate the firing code from the rest of the car from the car pawn class. So next in previous projectile will refer to a weapon instead. And then implement a fire, implement raycast type fire, which you guys have done. But this is this abstract weapons out from your so your car doesn't implement the weapons. The car has weapons, and those weapons are an abstract another class that's abstracted out from the car. So you can swap in weapons as you see fit. Why would you do something like take a look at BattleTech, where you've got mechs and you've got particularly like missile launchers. The favorite is the Arrow 4, which is the big artillery piece. It can launch nukes if you want it. You're not launching nukes unless you're doing a historic game. But it can launch big beefy.
Big green kaboom.
Not big green kaboom. Big missiles at big mechs.
Boys?
Big, yeah. It's one of those. There is a version of the Urban Mech which is it's a trash can with legs. Let's be honest. That's what the Urban Mech is. It's the lovable mech that can do things that it shouldn't do. There's a variant that has an arrow for it, and that's basically not. When you pull out that type of mech, you are trolling the other players on that game. So, but here is the what's going on. Let's go to PW Pawn. So I've actually gone in here and I actually implemented pros damage here in PW Pawn. Where am I asking? Is it PW Pawn? Yeah, I'm actually going in and I'm actually asking you to update PW Pawn, which means everything that you do here will inherit into your car pawn. I am just going to do a basic, do a public function, public void death test. And then I'll do a debug.log. This is going to be there we go. There's the actor. Is the actor name? We'll use actor name plus who's singing? Can we stop, please? So basically, I'm going to do actor name says I'm dead. Yeah, and then I can do. There is in the code. There is a ignores damage. So if it's true, this actor will ignore damage event. So I'm just going to say ignore damage is equal to true. So that I do so I get hit once and I go below 0. I don't keep saying, I get hit again and again. I don't keep saying that I'm dead over and over. So we'll save that. So what we were asked to do here is that we wanted to do a public list of, just do game objects, and this is going to be projectile, and then we'll have an integer projectile actually do projectile prefab list. index, set that to 0. So we know, so when we go fire off our projectiles, basically we know which one we'll be using. This is going, again, down here, we'll just do a public void next projectile. And this will be just previous. I'm literally going to just wire these right into Fire 3, Fire 4 right now. So I don't have to worry about these in. So do Fire 3, next projectile. And I'm literally going to, so we know that's going on, we'll do grab down here. And I'm just going to plug this right into this function right here. So that I don't have to worry about this in the carpon and whatnot. Did I implement? Yeah, I did implement Fire 1. Did I? No, I didn't. I did implement Fire 1. So what we need to do instead of going to current projectile, so one of the things I can do, and this is something that will happen on regular. You can grab current projectile, and we'll move this down a class. So we'll leave this here as game object current projectile. And so what we'll do is we'll assign, so next thing is minus, and then this is a case of if index is greater than or equal to the projectile dot count. Again, this should be, then the index is equal to 0, and then finally the current projectile is going to be equal to the list So basically, we'll assign the current projectile. So that will keeps our code as we wrote it over there. All right, basically gonna copy all of this, and it's kind of simple. This will be count -1, and this will be less than 0. So this is pretty straightforward code. We want to save here. We want to save here. Let's go back. So let's go back to Unity now. Start. And we do want to do current projectile is equal to prefab list I made it private. So I made this private. This is the case where protected is actually useful. So this means, there we go. So this means that me and my children can look at this. I don't want this to be, I don't want people outside of my classes. I assume that my children classes are acceptable to use this. So I'm going to grab that. We can jump back down here, and now I can access that. And I need to do this to set this up. Ideally, I would want to do this in the PW pawn. In fact, one of the things I would want to do, like going back to like actor, I really would rather have the start function be like down here. And then have that start function. So one of the things what we'll actually do is this is going to be so perform initialization. What we're going to do in the actor class is we're actually going to add. Is the first function. You just take. All right. So I'll do this at the very end of the class. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to do this to show you this in what's going to happen in action. So we're going to do the start function, and we're going to call the perform initialization function here. And basically, we're going to do a public virtual void perform initialization, and we're going to leave it empty. Now we're going to save this. We're going to actually jump back to so we're going to go back to Carpon. I'm actually going to take out this line of code, and this is now an override. Public, wait a second. I got the order wrong. Okay, so this is going to be let's do this over here. We're going to do a public override, and then we want to do the perform initialization. There we go. And we want to do base dot perform initialization here. In fact, so the reason we did this is so that here we can then say current projectile is going to be equal to our prefab list. And we'll use the index. So we'll do this here correctly. I'm going to grab this line of code. And even though this is not, the parent is not doing anything, I want to go here and do this here. So that this calls the PW version of that class. So I've given, so through that, like, and this is one of those like sleight of hand things that's going on. Again, I've got my actor class doing stuff here, and it's calling this function, and it will call this. It will call. So we'll start with Carpon. It will call its base, and it will look at PW, and it will call, and the first thing it'll do, it will call its parent. Now, there's no other performance installation between now all the way back to actor. So it will call actor. So, and I will just say for just debug.log. Just so that we'll see this in the log. So you can see that PW pawn, when we call this, it's literally calling this version of the function, because there's nothing between in the hierarchy between where that class is to where this is created. So let me save everything.
Quick question on that.
Yep.
Would there be a reason to do that, or can we put in virtual for the start function?
You
know it's a-
can. I just don't like having multiple start functions because start isn't tagged as virtual to begin with.
Okay.
So this is getting around so there's one. So there's actually only so I don't have to worry about multiple start functions in multiple classes. So I'm going to use one start function here, and I will force my child in classes to use this function, which is tagged to be overridden automatically.
I got you.
It's one of those. The start function is one of Unity's functions,
Yeah.
and it's not tagged as being virtual from the start. It's not tagged as being an override from the start.
But if we were to tag it, then we would have to. make it
Yeah,
function.
it's one of those. I don't want to screw. See, this is one of those. I wouldn't. That's a specific timing function from Unity. I'd rather have one of my base classes like here. I'm going at actor. I'd rather go all the way at my parent at this root level to have something it calls that I can override, as then to screw with the timing function. Yeah, I just don't trust that. This is for my purposes. I'm trying to basically. This is Unity's timing function. I don't want to play with that. This is a specific function method that's in Unity, and I don't want to play around with that. Instead, I'll have one of my base highest level classes create a function it calls, and then let the other children classes just say, do what it needs to do.
Just so it doesn't mess up.
So I don't mess that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is another example of this is that in C# when you make an application, when you make a C# console application, the first class that you deal with is your program class.
Yeah.
And the first thing you do in that class is to get out of that class because it's a static class. You want to get out of there. Your main function is static. You want to get out of there. So you create another instance of a class that you could deal normally. So you're not dealing with the static, the hassles of being in a static class or in a static function. This is. We want to keep start special and keep that and put that there. That's why I'm doing it this way. So to step side this, I'm just going to call another function that does what I would have done in start. I would have done elsewhere.
So you would have done the same thing with awake, update, fix.
Yeah, if I needed to do awake or update any of those. I think the only exception would be if I had made a singleton class. That would have been different.
Because it's just that one class.
It was
right?
that one class, yeah.
It's-
But I wouldn't be inheriting singleton classes unless I was doing something special.
This is going down the higher. The
Yeah,
class, right?
but what I'm doing here is that, like, again, what I've got implemented is the Carpon class. So everything I've done I've done here, PWPon has. Everything I've done in PWPon, Carpon has as well. So let's again, I've saved everything. Let's go back to Unity. We'll take a look at those. Not Unity Hub, thank you. So if we jump to, let's look at the PW1 again, the pawn class, collapse of your body. Here is on death. Here is again, it has projectile 1, but what I would want, here's the projectile prefab list. So I only have 2 right now. So I'll just go in and where's my prefabs here? So I'm just going to sign these in for right now. Now this is it's public right now. I probably would make this part again. This is one of those. This was public because we wanted to sign it in the last. I'd probably like the index, probably make it protected or private. Because we don't need to assign this. This is now we don't need this in the editor. Let me see. On death, again, one of the things that I can do here, I can actually assign that. Here is the object, and then under Carpon, there is death test. So again, while it sees the Carpon class, it knows that we implement that method in PWPon. So again, it's public, we can access it. So here I've set up basically my death test essentially.
So when it dies in pretty much any.
It will ignore more damage. That's what the ignore damage. That's in the actor class, and it will say I'm dead. Now, again, don't worry about like what happens when I die in terms of beyond that, because we're gonna handle that question next week. All right. This week is more. It's like going over. Hey, make more projectiles. Add them to your weapon to your cars. The other thing, and again, in fact, let's actually go in. Let's go to PW Pawn. So current projectile. I'm gonna leave this protected, so the children classes have access to it. If I make it private, the children won't have access to it. So this, just by that one change here, we'll go back to Unity, and that's now gone out of this list here. So I don't have to worry about, I'm managing that variable internally with my code now. So I don't need to worry about that in the inspector. Let's save the scene. Let's go to player to this. Let's go the player pawn here. Again, 2 more. We'll just, and I'm going to do these in reversed order just for the sake of argument. On death, again, assign it to its own self. Car pawn, death test. And we're starting to really get into like the power of Unity. Like, hey, I can, again, this is like calling polymorphism. Different classes can do different things. We can set up these. This is not like from there. This is the next level of that. Is that we can set up. I can set up 3 different. I can write different classes. I can do different things with those classes to handle different scenarios.
For the current weapons index, you know how you did the if the current index is greater than or like less than 0, then you set it like back to 0 or something.
Let's go back to that code. Yeah, this is typical the previous and next. I mean this is common of, hey, if I'm equal to the end of my count, then I'm out. Then I set it back to 0, and if I am below 0, then I'm going to count -1 because that's the last valid index in my array.
Do you think it'd be easier if we just did like a clamp and just clamp it between 2 values? Or
I mean, you could clamp it, but I mean, you could do that.
Mm-hmm.
That works too. But I mean,
it's just whatever.
It's whatever. I mean, it's this.
Yeah,
I mean, it's tomato in that case. What you're saying is it wouldn't be it wouldn't
you do like projectile prefab.
let me see f where's the math f dot, so there's the clamp. Clamp actually would not be correct in this case because I mean it works, but it would be overkill because you're looking at the minimum and max. Mm-hmm. You would want to be a well, no. No, the issue is that you don't want a clamp.
You could just put the value in there.
No, because the issue is that we want it to cycle.
Oh, okay.
That's why. So you could, but basically, if you went. So what would happen if you used the clamp or the min or max value is that, let's say we got to the end and we were using the max for the next projectile. What you do next, it would clamp it back down to the maximum value.
Same one, yeah.
Yeah, so you wouldn't be changing your projectile, which is not what we want. It's not the behavior we want. So that's why we're not using min, max, and clamp in that case. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, get used to the mathf function. Take a look what's in here. There's the absolute value. There's the sine, cosine, exponential, degree to radian. Later on, there's a radian to degrees. There's a sine function. The round. So there's things in here. Oh, this Perlin noise. That's going to be interesting. Next power of 2. So there's some interesting functions in there. So they go in. 2. Are we taking damage? It is hitting it. Take a look. What happened? So. So I'll look at player 2. What? Oh, he's ignoring damage. That's why. There we go. That's why it wasn't working. It was ignoring damage automatically. Here we go. 1, 2. And why is it not affecting a tell? What damage events? What's going on? I bet you I've done something silly. So let's take a look at actor. That's ignored damage turn true. That's fine. Let me just not worry about the let's just override it completely. It's a good question. You know what? I don't. You know what's going on? Let's go look at projectile. Yeah, it's not doing damage. So yeah, go in here and uncomment this code, and you need to flip this line of code over. This is a case where the projectile damage type does not exist. In this case, I'm just gonna do a no. I'm just gonna ignore it. And you can go in again later. We can look at that. But let's there we go. Projectile's not actually doing damage yet. So we'll save on death. We can go. And there you go, pawn 2, I'm dead. So if we can look at the player 2, it is now, it's now ignoring damage. Again, we can, and it's still functioning, and that's something we'll deal with next lab. And you can see now, player 1, I'm dead. So we're reporting our deaths out now. Now that we're actually doing damage. Is there a lot of code and there's a lot of stuff going on? Yes. But the idea here is that we're splitting things out into different classes for different purposes. And I know we've inherited multiple times. But the goal here is that our game is very modular. We can plug in things, plug out things at the engine level. Our game is responding on the fact that, hey, I'm firing this projectile. I'm using this weapon and it fires this type of projectile. It's modular. So we can swap things in out. It's like, again, razor blade, razor head. We've got a lot of, I'm trying to show you all of the handle pieces, but then showing you how all those the head pieces plug in. For our purposes, these are the razor heads. And all the code that we've written so far is, that supports it, is the razor handle. So, sorry. Next projectile, fire one. Next projectile. So I need to go through and look at. Let's start with so there's one of my things is not. So let's look at the input polar just quickly. Here's the gamepad. Let's look at Q. E is south. Oh, and this is why one of my keys wasn't bound. So look down here. Yeah, I've got two easts. So I won't. So more things that to adjust. Make sure I got all my keys working. Again, in these, player one, player two, basically these are just passing just basically taking keyboard inputs and passing it over into a gamepad structure, essentially. There is one thing so we jump into your modules. We're going to look at a different way to handle this. So I've got an interface example, and this is talking about hey, how do we interface with things? So this is how do I access a variable? Delegates is basically pointer functions. I think we'll worry about those. I mean, your events are a variant on the delegates. There's a level up your code with programming patterns. You should get this book and download it and read it. Because we'll talk about this. You should start reading this book now because we'll talk more about it later on. But there's a execute order events. There's these Unity documentations. So I'm going to do in the reverse order here. This or event functions. So this is this chart right here. Who is doing what where? Awake, and there's awake, enable, reset, start, fix, update. Update down is here. Here's on mouse events, on trigger, on collision, physics stuff is happening. And when, in the order, and how it's looping. Scene rendering things. Gizmo rendering, GUI rendering. Yield, there is yield. We'll talk about enumerators later on. And then decommissioning. Down here is on application pause, wait for end of frame, decommissioning stuff. So there's an order to these functions, and they have different call times. So just want to make sure you understand what's going on through here in terms of these functions. The other one is script order execution settings. And this is interesting. Is that, hey, there is, if you go to edit project settings, execute order category. We'll actually go to that right now. So it is going to be edit. Did I say preferences? Well, let me make sure I got this right. Sorry, it's project. Yeah, it's project settings. Script execution. order setting. So these are things that are up here are more that are changing the order script and modifying metadata for more script. Scripts in the custom order can execute before the default time and executed from top to bottom. So this is default time. This is the Unity Engine UI toggle group. In player input. What we want to do in here is we actually want to add a script to the custom order. In fact, what we want to do is add the player controller. And we're going to set this at just after player input. We want to run that player controller class. Why are we doing this? Let's take a look at player controllers quickly. This is the one that's getting in processing input. Now, one of the things that we could do is we could actually turn off process input and have it just get input. And then basically, like current is equal to this. Where is... So we're doing the previous here. Current input is equal to previous after that. In fact, what we may want to do actually is take this line of code. And so our current input is equal to our previous. Then we got our input. So we're doing all that action up front.
Is that for the start function or is that for the await function?
This is the update in the player controller.
For the script execution order.
What was that? What about the script execution order?
Is that like executing an order from the await function or the start?
It's by category. So by putting that class in there, we've now said this class now updates updates before. What basically we're saying this is updating before other classes.
Mm-hmm.
And we really want to, particularly for the player controller, just for this functionality right now that we've done this right here, we could actually take off process input.
Mm-hmm.
And this is getting now into more Unreal, like Unreal Engine 5. They'll get input to update the player controller class, and the input information sits with the player controller. And literally let's go back up to our input. We've got these protected. This is a case where these would end up being public.
Fairly.
We could make these public. I'm going to leave these protected actually. We'll actually get. So there's two ways we could do this. We can get. For the current. I'm going to do getter function. So it wouldn't be setting functions. Again, we don't want to set them, but we could write a function here. So for current, let's do a public input data get current input. So this is what we're talking about interface. Here we're adding a get current input function to the player controller so that we can then we can get this protected data. The other way, let's bring up. I'm going to bring up C# property. I'm actually going to copy this. I'm going to add this to your documentation. It's not where I want. Here we go. So, yeah. Let's actually add this live. Actually, I think I have this as an example function. Yeah. So here is a variable, a private variable, and here is a public interface. So what it looks like it, but what we do is we get this. Let me just grab this code. So here is the get and set method that I've written. I'm actually, why is Canvas acting? Never mind. Let's just ignore that. So for here, for this previous, I'm going to write a, so there'll be a public get so the input data. So now there's a block, and we're going to get, it's going to be a get. Let me look at the code quickly. I don't write these often, so. Come on. So here is. Here, fill back. Get in. Oh, come on. This is not what we want. Let's go back to the. Here we go. So get, and then this is basically I've got a code block. So let's go in get. Return input. Previous. So I have this block of code here, which has a get. Can I set? I can also write a set. This is a Y scenario. You know, I can assign it. Do I really want to? No. This is a case where I only want it. You can write get and set functions with a property, and you've seen these. You've seen like the forward on a game object transform.game, game object transform.forward. We've been using the get and set. It's a property, and it's been setting in the rotation based on that, or getting the forward vector based on that object. Again, this one, I don't need a get. Okay, it was yelling about, I hadn't applied this yet. That's why I was yelling. But like one of the things I can now do, be like, okay, all right, now that we've got these interfaces to get the current and previous input, we can actually go to the Carpon, and this is how you guys have been working in Unreal, like Unreal Engine 5, like literally going and be like, here's the vertical function, be like, hey, owner. And then there is actually again, the underclass owner. This is protected, but there is again the owner property. So owner, we can get current. Oh, let's go to the underscore owner. Did I save it? What's going on? Oh, okay. Yeah, so the issue that we're dealing with here is that owner is in type of player controller. I mean, type of controller. We want to cast to player controller. This is a hack, just so you know. Get current input. Again, that's a function in this case. We're going to do this again. We're going to cast a player. get the property, get and it's a property. It's yelling because I haven't done anything with it. But here we've got a cast from our owner to our player controller, in which we then needed to we could have access to those functions. So this is again casting from controller to player controller is one of the things that we're doing.
So is player controller inherited from controller, right?
Yes, because the alternative is there's an AI controller, and this is again Unreal, how Unreal does it. Now the code I've done here is risky because I'm casting and assuming the cast is always going to be fine, and that's ideally the code here. Again, this is like why the code here really should be player controller PC is equal to player controller cast the owner if PC is not equal to null, so the cast was successful. We can then go in and do PC dot, so here's get current, get previous. Again, this is a function, a method, and this is a property. Just to do get previous input. No, that's no. Get current input. There we go. So this is how that should actually be written. We're casting when you cast, verify the cast happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just can't because of how modular the engine is, how we're building things. You just can't assume that when you do a cast, it's always correct. When you get something and it returns back a pointer, if it doesn't return any, the first thing you have to do is assume that you didn't get anything. Otherwise, you have a null pointer that you're not handling correctly. And this is where your engine crashes. It's a null pointer. So you'll see this code over and over and over again. I do something to make sure I'm casting, or I'm getting something from somewhere else. I'm getting a pointer or getting a reference. The first thing I want to make sure is that reference I got back is actually something I can use. I got a list of. I asked for a list of things. Does the list have anything in it? These are things you got to ask. You got to do over and over and over again, because of how we're building modularly.
So how did you get the owner variable?
The owner variable is in the controller class.
Is it like a static variable?
No, sorry, it's in the actor class.
Oh, okay. So that's just.
So the actor. So basically, so in actor, there's an owner variable, and that has the controller that is controlling it.
Mm-hmm.
I think is it. I create that in.
Actor.
I create that in actor.
So how are you
in
casting it to?
In pawn, that also refers to who's the controller.
So is actor inherited from player controller?
No. Let's go back over these classes. So one of my classes, my root classes, is the info class, inherits from mono behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And the structure I've written here, actor inherits from info,
Mm-hmm.
and pawn inherits from actor. We have the controller, which is another, it inherits from info.
Okay.
So the info is basically where I dump,
Basically
anything I want in any particular class. Like one of the things in the info class is the factory function,
Mm-hmm.
which is part of the class, which is basically, hey, create this prefab, location, rotation, assign this controller to be its owner. It's a specialized function, and it's basically instantiate and sets it up as I want it. Gets the it makes sure I get a new actor, get the actor, make sure I'm going through to make sure, and I return back the new actor. basically it's C8++. I've got other things down here. Get its name, get its location, get its rotation, get its transform.
So you can cast from an actor to a player controller?
No, I can't. No. So I can cast from. In actor, it has
The owner.
the owner variable. Here's the property.
Oh.
Here's its protected version.
Oh.
So this is where we're actually setting it, and this is just a property.
Oh, okay.
So what I'm doing is I've got this is controller is set the actor, but it's that type act controller.
Right.
So what I'm doing over, where was I? Here for this again. I'm gonna have to take this code out, but basically I'm taking the owner, I'm casting it to a player controller, and then I'm assigning it to another variable here, and then asking make sure did my cast happen correctly. Again, for those who were in the Unreal class, we did this a lot with the game mode. We did this a lot with the HUD class. We did this a couple times with. Those are the two classes we did it. We didn't use player controller as extensively as we are using it here. So, but again, by making the change that I just showed you in the, where is it? In the no, I put that in the player controller. So, but what we're doing here, again, not this extra stuff. Where did I get it? Yeah, get the current input, get these public access methods to the data. We can write our code so that we can act more like we can have our again. Again, I can get my current input. So, this is input. And then I can go off and be like, hey, input, and I can now do what I want with that input. So I'm going, this is why I'm making sure that my player controller is getting run beforehand, right? Like right after get the input system, is so that these classes will, when they ask the player controller for the input, that code would have run before what we're doing here. Again, we're talking a lot of engineering. This is like a lot of structural pieces, and everything that I've done with the script execution order, adding the interface to get the current and previous. What I'm doing here, I will take this code out because this is not what we wanted to do. Just writing place to write code. But basically, ultimately, I'm showing you other ways to do the same thing. I know we didn't have an update. I can then go in and basically hey, update. Instead of let's go back to the player. Right now the player controller, is it? No, it's PW player controller. It's doing all the heavy work. So here is the process input function, and it's overriding what the player, because the player controller doesn't want. Again, I check if it's not a player control. But we could have taken this process input. We could have taken this function and put it into the PW pawn or the pawn class. Or not the pawn class, PW pawn or the car pawn, and have done that work here. And we could have set it up so that rather than grabbing, doing in the player controller class, we're doing it over in the pawn class, like UE5 has been doing lately. Mm-hmm. There's more again. There's multiple ways to handle this.
It's a lot of info.
It's a lot of code, but the idea is that we want to spread out our code in ways and have it structured so that we're plugging things in and out of our system. We are data driven, we are robust.
Is this how modern Unity games are made now?
What is that?
Is this how some modern Unity games?
Some are,
kind of
some are,
set up?
not always.
Same concept though.
the same concept. But this is more, again, the code we're seeing here is more in line with like Unreal Engine 3, Unreal Engine, early Unreal Engine 4, where the player controller was much more important and more used. Like again, those who came out of the 1306 Unreal class, we didn't use the player controller very much, and that's something that's changed from older versions of the engine to newer versions because of how Blueprint has affected things. There's a lot of duplicated code between. If you look here, if you look at this player controller, it's calling its Fire1 function, and it's doing is basically calling a Fire1 function on the pawn. It's getting its pawn, casting it properly, and then calling the function on the pawn. That's kind of what all of these are doing, with the exception of Fire 3 and Fire 4 in my case. No, I'm actually going.
I think you're still going through the pawn, but
Yeah, actually, it's being done in the pawn actually. Let me see, PW pawn. Where is it? Yeah, so I'm handling. Yeah, I'm handling the next. So I'm doing this right here in the PW pawn. I know I am throwing the kitchen sink at all of you, and I know this is not. There's a lot of code here, and there's a lot of layers. And some of you are saying that, wow, this is complicated. And yes, it is, and it can be complicated. Again, this is why am I teaching it this way? Because you're going to see code like this. You're going to see this happen with Unreal. But the other thing that I want you to be aware about is that we are dealing this in an object-oriented way right now. And I'm just going to seed an idea of thought. There is another way of handling what we are doing. It's called data-driven programming. And if you heard about Unity dots, or data-oriented is actually what it's data-oriented programming, or what Unity has is the data-oriented technology stack, or dots. And there's a different way where the goal of data-oriented programming is to collapse this hierarchy into something more manageable and something more simpler. That's the goal of that. That's the goal of data-oriented programming. So when you see this complexity here with object-oriented programming, know that sometimes there's another programming paradigm that exists out there that questions what we're doing here with the complexity we're doing here. Both paradigms exist. Don't get me wrong. The paradigm, the object-oriented programming there is still king. It's still dominant. But data-oriented as a paradigm is growing. Again, already Unity dots. Now, there's issues with dots that it's still not prime time ready for in several areas. I think the animation tools are still not there for whatever reason. I don't understand why that was never a priority. So there's things that are not the object-oriented programming stacks that we know. So the game object, they refer to as the game object stack, is mature and everything's there. Whereas dots they're still building it and still working on things. It's still not there. It's close, but it's not there. Unity now knows that they've made a mistake. How they've implemented this in a weird way, and now they're trying to bridge both stacks into a unified technology stack. Because it doesn't make sense to have both. So.
Have they done that yet? Or?
No, they're still working on that. This is future Unity. This is why I still teach you the object-oriented, the game object stack, because it's still there and still runs. And there are things there, they've updated things, and Unity has done things such as they bought a package called MLAPI, which is a high-level networking package, and that's been renamed to the game object networking stack.
Is that for like multiplayer?
It's for multiplayer, yeah. But they also have their own DOTS version, and they've deprecated other networking stacks as well. That's one of those. We go back 5, 6, 7 years, and how you would work with Unity is so insane. Unity was like, oh, we didn't support this, we didn't think about this. This is before even like we go back 10 years. Literally, everyone was basically ditching Unity's input manager and either writing their own or buying one off the asset store, because the one that Unity was providing at a commercial level was not up to the task. You're now using the new input system, which is up to the task. But having said that, for a while, I know Sony has if you were writing on one of the PlayStation platforms, Sony was giving you an input manager for their devices because they had to write something because Unity's input system wasn't providing the level of detail and features that you would have expected, and consistency as well. I don't know if I should be telling you that, but I'm not really worried. I mean, Sony had to write their own manager for the controllers, the move stuff, what they were doing, because Unity wasn't providing the correct a way to handle that information, get that information in a meaningful way. And just trust me, the new input system is improved, and as we go through, we find more things. Like, we're still digging. Gentlemen, what's going on?
Nothing. We were just talking.
All right. So about the last 30 minutes where I've been adding things and upgrading things here and showing you, like, these are not part of your assignment. These are things you should know and be aware about. This is things that you can do. This is the part of these are getting into really software engineering pieces. And I'm showing you them so you know that they're there and how to do them. But they're not even part of your assignment. Again, your assignment mostly is in Carpon. And we made some changes it's in PWPon. I mean, we made some changes. We moved things out of Carpon down to PWPon. And this is refactoring your code, and it's normal to do this, to move functionality out of one class to another. All right. Any questions before I stop the recording? All right.